Hi, welcome to a new video, and in this one I just wanted to spend a little while talking about my latest adventure in sim racing, which basically has been VR. So I messed around with VR before I got a PC with my PS4 Pro and PSVR, and it was okay. I mean, you couldn't do a great deal with it racing-wise. The original Dirt Rally was the only really fully featured title, and then you had stuff you could mess around with. So there was the Drive Club Off Spin that played well but looked fairly ropey, and then there was Gran Turismo, which looked pretty good but was incredibly limited. And I put a video together on PSVR racing titles a long time ago, which people can go and look at if they want. But recently I picked up an Oculus Quest 2 for my PC, just to give it a go and see what it was like more than anything else, mainly because it's a cheaper option than buying a triple screen, and my current graphics card wouldn't handle a triple screen anyway. So I'm pairing this with my GTX 1660 Ti, which is, I knew was going to be fairly entry level into the world of VR for PC. But I set off into this wonderful world, and the one thing I very quickly learnt is the one thing that Sony did right with the PSVR, and that is the fact that it's unbelievably easy to use. There is nothing to do. You just plug it all in, follow the instructions that pop up on screen, and bingo, you're in and everything's running. Because it's a closed platform, all of the titles are optimal. You can't tweak them or do anything with them, so it's very easy. VR and PC, not quite so much, I rapidly discovered, although that does depend on the title in question. I mean, you've got lots of hoops to jump through. The Quest 2 is a good entry-level price. It's a reasonable piece of kit, but you've got to run it through the Oculus link, and then you've got Steam VR to contend with, and none of it tells you how to do it very easily. So a big thank you to about 1 billion different people in terms of videos and websites and other sources I found that helped me get to the bottom of it. And what I just wanted to talk about first of all was, because I'm still only playing around with this, I don't want this to come across as a definitive guide to VR on PC. It's just really, if somebody's interested in taking the step I've done, what I've found so far. So I've got quite a few titles that are VR enabled, and of these titles, some of them are good and easy to get into, or reasonably easy to get into, and look pretty good from the word go. Others not so much. And I've not tried all of the titles I've got on VR yet either. So if I want to talk about, first of all, some of the ones that were problematic, so to speak. So, interesting one, RFactor 2 actually worked better and was easier to get into and set up and running reasonably well than I thought it would be. But the downside is it's RFactor 2, so, the UI is a complete mess and a nightmare, and getting it running anyway and getting into anything to drive it is just a real pain in the arse. So it kind of falls into that category of being really quite a pain. In a similar vein of being quite frustrating, I would have to put Project Cars 3 and Assetto Corsa Competizione for completely different reasons. Project Cars 3 because, quite frankly, it looks worse than Project Cars 2 in VR, and not by a little bit, by a lot. It's really badly optimised, and I've done a ton of reading on Project Cars 2 and Project Cars 3, and I could get Project Cars 2 looking a hell of a lot better, a hell of a lot quicker with a lot less faffing around, and Project Cars 3 gives you almost no options in-game either. You've got to mess around with background files to get it to do anything, and even then it doesn't perform as well in VR as Project Cars 2 does by any stretch of the imagination. It's very jaggedy and very rough. Assetto Corsa Competizione, on the other hand, gives you about a billion different options to play around with, an almost unprecedented amount. And again, there's a lot you can do in game, there's a lot you can play around with background files, and there's a lot of reading you can do on getting it set up in VR. And the one thing I very quickly found out about this, and why I lump it together with Project Cars 3, oddly enough, in this regard, is both of them seem really poorly optimised for VR. They do. Getting the most performance out of either of them is very tricky. I'd argue for Project Cars 3 it's almost not worth it, but for Assetto Corsa Competizione, I so want it to be good in VR. I really do so want to be able to push and get as much performance out of it as I can, but for both of them it's going to be a real struggle to do that, and I'm going to be blunt, I have far more interest personally in doing that for ACC than I do for Project Cars 3. One of the other really annoying things about Project Cars 3 is how much worse it is, as I mentioned earlier, than Project Cars 2. Project Cars 2 is actually fairly straightforward to get looking decent and doesn't look too bad out of the box, in all honesty, and is a hell of a lot better optimised than Project Cars 3 is out of the box. So, again, I don't see the reason to push to get Project Cars 3 optimised for VR when I'd rather spend the time doing that for Project Cars 2, and I've already, in a similar amount of time, managed to get that a lot further in that regard. Now, I don't actually have the original Project Cars for PC, but apparently that was even better optimised for VR. So if that turns up dirt cheap in a sale or a humble bundle somewhere, I might have to just explore that to see what's going on. In terms of another one that was really easy to get up and running and set up, and I was looking forward to, is Dirt Rally 2.0. As I say, I really liked the implementation of VR on the PlayStation, and it doesn't disappoint either on PC, and I've used this quite a lot, and it's good to have a rally title because unfortunately the WRC series doesn't have VR, much as I would love it to have. By the way, just to put it out there, I have no intention of becoming a no VR, no sale person, not by any stretch of the imagination. Because whilst the immersion is great, the visual factor isn't as good as a flat screen at any point, certainly not at my price point and entry level anyway. So yeah, good ones so far, Project Cars 2, as I say, and also Dirt Rally 2.0, but the two that I've probably spent the most time with and have most pleasantly surprised me in terms of VR so far are Raceroom Racing Experience, which was actually very simple to get set up and running, pretty good results in all honesty, and yeah, looks good, plays well, it'll manage races well, and I'm quite enjoying that one in VR. It's a good solid experience in VR. And then Assetto Corsa, which I'd heard was horrible in VR. Now, don't get me wrong, the way the menus are presented to you and the fact that, you have to turn right the way to the side and the other side, so there's a lot of moving your head backwards and forwards, but it runs easily on the Quest 2 without having to bother going via Steam VR, which is a plus point. It's stable, it can be made to look pretty good quite easily. The only downside is with modded content, some of the modded content looks bloody awful in VR, but some of it looks exceptionally good as well. And a lot of this, I think, is probably down to Content Manager, but things like rain, the weather effects, it just looks and plays far better in VR than I thought it would, which is great news. Now, on to titles I've got to look at in the future. So I've not yet had a chance to play around with Kartcraft, which is supposed to be pretty good in VR as well. So I'll see what that's like. And I've only had a limited amount of time in Automobilista 2, which I have to say, in all honesty, I would put at a kind of Project Cars 2 level in terms of the ease of getting into and playing around with it in VR. In terms of investment in time for quality of results, it looks to be at a similar level to Project Cars 2. So there we go. So you will be seeing a lot more VR content from me going forward, but don't worry, that's not going to stop me with the other content that's out and about, because, you know, I am still massively looking forward to the likes of WRC 10 coming out, and the fact that it probably, almost certainly won't have VR is not going to put me off on that, because I just love the title too much. But yeah, it's an interesting realm to start playing in, and does add to that level of immersion, without a shadow of a doubt, but at the expense to a degree of the graphical, well, not to a degree, at the expense of the graphical fidelity you get off of a flat screen. Again, certainly at my price point. So yeah, that's my early adventures into VR in sim racing on PC. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, if it's an area you're thinking of stepping into, or one you have already stepped into, and your experiences down in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed this video or found it interesting, please do hit the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.